I really wanted to share is the title in itself, right? It's engaging first-generation minority students and why soft science is important in STEM. And the title was very intentional, and that we always hear about recruitment and retention in terms of STEM. But I didn't want to focus on recruitment and retention, but I really wanted to focus on engaging. Because if you're able to engage students, you are going to recruit them to your campus and you are going to retain them. And so soft science has a place, a special place for students who are minority and first-generational students. So with that, here's my disclaimer. Are you able to hear me okay? Yes. Perfect. My disclaimer is I am a second semester visiting lecturer in public health. And my second disclaimer is this is my second semester at UNT-Dallas. And my third disclaimer, the views that are expressed in this presentation do not necessarily reflect the views of UNT-Dallas or its affiliates. Those are my disclaimers. So anything that has been said or will be said is from a second year, second semester, public health visiting lecturer. And so it's my humble pleasure to share my learning with you. So today's goal, just focusing on the action research model that was adopted by Estrada et al. I want to provide an overview of the current state of STEM representation in the underrepresented minority community, and then provide an overview of the known barriers to this underrepresentation, and then provide recommendations based upon two studies that I focused on. You will read and see that there's been so much money invested in this subject of retention and recruitment and STEM and minority and underrepresentation. And so this presentation, because of our time, is very limited to two studies that I want to share what they have recommended that has worked and been successful too. And then finally, if there's time for us to discuss, if possible and if needed, what we could do at UNT-Dallas to engage our own STEM population. So, I thought this was an interesting statistic. Since 1980, when affirmative action came into place, meaning you can now accept students into your organization, into your workplace, by their race, ethnicity. You can take that into your application. Since affirmative action, in terms of our Hispanic and our Black population, it's actually declined the number of students who have been accepted into the top universities. And so affirmative action, as much criticism and as much attention that it's received, is actually counter in that the gap is actually widening for our Hispanic and Black. Asian population, they're actually showing an 8-point increase, and white population, their margin of increase is increasing, but it's very small in comparison to our Asian population. And I thought this was interesting because when you look at the gap that still exists for Black students and Hispanic students in terms of the overall population, so we are raising a generation of college-ready students who are not entering college based upon this. For our Black population, there's a 10-point gap, and there's a 9-point gap for our Hispanic population. I stress this because as our population becomes more diverse, and we have a population that is becoming more diverse, but yet the gap widens of how we are educating and engaging our diverse population, we as an American society have much work to be done. Because if we have a population that's undereducated, it's our population. how do we supply and support our economy, right? So, to go through this real quick, just some more statistics. This from using the data from the National Center for Educational Statistics. It's showing that for the population at large, and then the number of degrees that are earned on these racial demographics, racial and ethnic demographics. For the underrepresented, and this category usually includes African Americans, Hispanic, Latinos, Latina, and American Indians, you will see that the population is 29%, but the students who actually go on to receive a doctorate is 7.3%. And then the population from 60%, but it's a greater percent of the population who goes on to receive a doctorate. So this just gives you an overview of the population size and then the number of individuals who actually go on. And you can see the disparity in this graph even more. So what are some of the barriers? We can belabor this subject, right? There are many barriers. Decades of work has been done and billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars. Anytime I hear billions of dollars, my mind stops to say, how much is enough? How much is enough before we find a solution, right? So if the gap continues, this graph is interesting because it's showing that there is actually a graduation rate similar for the white students, Black students, 6-year graduation rates in STEM, right? However, what we find, even though the graduation rates are similar, the number of interested students are not similar. And that's where the disparity is. So I thought, well, why not have what our own university demographic system looks like, right? Student population looks like. And so on our website, the Office of Strategic Analysis and Reporting has our own page, our own student population. And this I pulled for the School of Liberal Arts. You can pull for business. Any of the schools within UNT-Dallas has this statistics, and this is the website. But we know that of our 4,000 students, 1,600 are in the liberal arts college. And where are our STEM majors? In our liberal arts college. So the bulk of our students come from liberal arts. And I thought it was just interesting to show, I was not able to get the statistics for the breakdown by race and ethnicity for these specific majors, but the information is out there. And if further, we can explore what that looks like. But this is our campus statistics. Our faculty, we have 63 African American. This is from 2018, so I'm not included in this statistics. But we're at 26%. And then Asian is 6%, Caucasian 48%, Hispanic 10%. And so the numbers within our own UNT-Dallas is not far off from what the national statistics showing, that there's a decline in the number of underrepresented minorities at the PhD level, which oftentimes leads into the academic faculty level, right? And gender, we're pretty much, women are rocking it here at UNT-Dallas at 55%. And male, there are 45 males. You are great. I'm not saying you're not great, but when you see numbers like this, we're rocking it. And so the population for UNT-Dallas, Hispanic are primarily our highest ethnic group, in that 50% of our students, almost 50% of our students identify as Hispanic or Latino. And then 30% as African American, about roughly 15% as white, and then our numbers for the other racial groups, Asian, one or two or more races, are under 10%. And then, just as the faculty gender is leaning towards the female population, so are our student demographics. So we have 68% of our who are our population for. Just so I can give you those numbers, right? And so for me, these are my views, right? There's other reasons of why STEM is important, but just on the superficial level of benefits of STEM, STEM students usually earn more than their peers, right? And so their jobs usually lead to Nobel Prizes. Their jobs usually lead to awards that could possibly bring recognition to the school, exposure, and then the financial support. Many private universities function because their alumni come back and pour into their university. And why can't that be the same for UNT-Dallas, right? And publicity. If you're graduating a group of extremely brilliant, elite STEM majors, and it's all in the news, these are the things that are happening at UNT-Dallas, it's going to increase publicity. We will need another billboard. Our students are our walking market, right? And so it will possibly increase enrollment. So what are some of the barriers that we find in having a population? So it's not like we don't have a large number of students who aren't college age. It's not like we don't have a pool of African American students and Hispanic students at our own university. So what are some of the problems with students that are considered underrepresented graduating and sticking with STEM majors? Part of the problem is the attrition rate. So students are coming in majoring in STEM majors, but by semester one, they have checked out. And so some studies have been done, and Strata found that their gatekeeper courses, that students, after taking out their first semester, decide, this is just a little bit too challenging for me, and I want to graduate in 5 years. And so this is not going to work, and so they leave. They also found that the attrition rate was similar for all students, another study. However, African Americans are more likely to not complete by dropping out or changing majors. So these are the two. They're either dropping out of school once they enter, or they're switching their majors. And this accounts for over 60% of the population of African American students who enter into a STEM major. Stress. Stress within the underrepresented minority community stems from the unicorn in the room syndrome, the imposter syndrome. There's many studies that have shown that students who are oftentimes the only race or ethnic group within a group feel very standoutish, and they feel as though everyone is staring at them. You don't belong in this environment because you don't look like the other people. So the stress of having to maneuver that thought oftentimes leads students to feel isolated. One of my colleagues, Munoz, and his reporter published an article in 2020 and looked only at the stereotypes that many Latino students face. As a result, it led to isolation, and the emotional tolls on the faculty and students actually was a stressor, because faculty members often felt the need, they had to maintain a level of accreditation, and so they have tests to maintain these levels of accreditation, but the students feel very stressed by it, and faculty feels the students aren't prepared. There's that divide of my students are not prepared for the world of STEM, but I need for them to be prepared because I have an accreditation system that I must maintain. I have a curriculum system that I must maintain. And then also many students within the Latina population indicated that they had mental and physical health that they didn't feel supported by. They felt that there was a lack of social bonds. So if I'm having a hard day and I come in, can my professor relate to that stress and intervene? And so many times students enter into the classroom stressed mentally and physically, but felt they did not have that social support to promote healthy coping mechanisms. And the third, the social political context, in that cultural competency, we hear a lot about that in cultural humility. A study was done by Mitri where they looked at environmental science students and their ability to look at their professor in a cultural perspective. And what they found was that there was a lot of cultural conflicts that were occurring, particularly when it came with environment and nature. So the students had a separate belief of what nature entails versus what their professors, and so it was a cultural conflict that was occurring. Socially biased perspective, that one way of nature is the right way of nature. When you think of our Native Americans, their perspective of nature does not follow the Anglo-Saxon perspective of nature. And so there's a lot of social, political isolation that occurred where students didn't feel they could raise their hands and have a meaningful dialogue with their professors because it didn't mirror their professors' perspectives. And so cultural competency training, we hear a lot about it. We hear how it can benefit the students by having a professor who's in tune with their biases. But I'm saying if we've spent $9 million realizing that these are the soft things that we need to focus on, why do we still not have success? Why do we still find that from 35 years later, we thought, I know, I'm going to let your race be a primary factor in me admitting you. That's going to solve our problem, right? The problem is not that easily fixed because what we fail to realize, we are human beings that come with different cultural, different economical, different perspectives, religious-wise, culturally, normally wise. And so when you try to put people, human beings, individuals, and you try to not understand their uniqueness and put them into any program and hope that it works, put them in a black box, you will end up spending money and not having a successful solution, right? And so that's what we've been finding. You will find some success, not to be a Debbie Downer. But one of the studies that I want to share where they are actually finding great success is at California State University, not to be confused with University of California State, which recently, not this University of California State, recently yesterday announced that they're going to provide free tuition for all their students whose household earns less than $80,000 annually. Doesn't have to include your house, which is great. But I picked this one because they are the largest public system within the United States. They graduate more of the techs, more of the IT, more of the engineering than any university. They have 23 campuses. Their faculty staff is 6 times our student population. They have about 24,000 faculty members. Just faculty members, not students. And so it's a huge university system. But they took 8 campuses and they participated in what they have identified as high impact STEM practices. So what they did is that for students to be accepted into this program, they had to go through a summer bridge program. And then they had a first-year experience where it was all devoted to STEM. And then they redesigned their introductory STEM courses. One study that's not related to this actually had their STEM, they had an adaptive STEM course where a student could possibly fail the quiz, and the algorithm now will guide this student through that module based upon the score that they made on a quiz. Some organizations have for the students to retake the quiz multiple times until they pass it. And so this adaptive redesign of how we introduce STEM. I wanted to focus on this because back at one of the barriers, it was the gatekeepers that oftentimes students decided, this is not for me. This major, when I take that first intro to chemistry, that first intro to physics, I don't want to stay in this major a second longer, right? And so the redesign of the introductory STEM course, they found was instrumental in keeping students engaged. They had a course that was strictly introducing students to terminology in STEM, genes, molecule, words that students should have known. But we serve a population where what is one of our biggest complaints? Our students are underprepared. And so if we know that our students are underprepared, CSU said, let us take a step back, get our students caught up to some level. I know we here at UNT-Dallas have some what we call bridge courses, but bridge courses that are specific to STEM, the topic in STEM, how students are to think about the field of STEM, think about graduating, thinking about internships. And so this course, this introductory course is done for the students. Right, so what have they found? They found that students need more than STEM-specific courses. They need the hands-on experiential learning. They need advising, math readiness, career readiness, peer majors, mentors. They realized that if they had a sophomore that was connected to a freshman, that person was able to mentor them, and that was successful, and to develop an identity in science. We as human beings learn by imitation. If this person has not seen someone that looks like them, it's very hard for them to develop that identity that they too can be a scientist. And so CSU had students develop a science identity. And then they had peer-based learning modules, right? Well, they found that, yes, the STEM-specific aspect was important, but there was a component for first generation and minority students that needed to be coupled with the STEM initiative for it to be meaningful for that student. Because setting expectation, creating college knowledge, working with faculty, validation was key for students. Students wanted to know that their professors looked at them and said, you were capable, not you will be capable, right? That means you have the potential. You are capable, meaning just right where you are capable. You are smart. Students needed that validation. They needed family support, especially when they're working. And also they needed advising that were very hands-on to know that students' unique pathway to become that STEM. And so what they realized is that support in both areas were key. So what are some of their final recommendations? And I'm going to go back. Academic affairs and student affair offices I was trying to learn about our academic offices and our students. But what they said is that these two departments, divisions, needed to work together in a meaningful way by using data. So academic affairs has one set of student data, student affairs have one set of student data. Use that data collectively to understand what our student populations is going through, and then tap into multiple programs that were already in existence with first generation and minority students in mind. So there were, let's say, 30 different programs on the university. Don't go add another one. Don't add a single other program. Don't add a single other initiative. Use what we already have. Work together. Let the person in Learn Commons basically have a cohort system to follow these students and align with high impact programs, right? This was very novel. Talk to the students, right? I mean, it's laugh, but just as something as simple to say, what are some of your challenges? What are some of your concerns? What are some of your barriers? What would make you successful to complete this program? Talk to the students. Get the students' feedback on what counts and what does not. So, what they found, implementation challenges. If we have a poor program design, if our organization has a policy, you don't talk to the lab in biology. You talk to the lab in chemistry. If that's the university's policy, then I can't break university's policy, so you have to navigate through the university's policy. And then the workload of the student and the faculty. So if you're asking the faculty to be so fully engaged, are you freeing their time where they can have that support curriculum to help our students, right? And then lack of collaboration. I'm taking my bag and I'm leaving here after I finish my teaching. What is to stop me? What incentive do you have for me to say you have the right to stop me from leaving when I've committed my time and my duties? So lack of collaboration can also be. But then also the lack of resources. What if we just don't have the money? Right, so these are some of the things to consider. And then not only that, poor design. I started by talking about affirmative action and how we can throw programs at people and say, well, it's there, the support is there, you need it. But if it doesn't meet the needs of the students based upon their current family structure, right? So one student may have a family structure that pulls upon them, but they may be great at math. So the fact that they lack a family structure that supports them does not automatically mean they are terrible at math. So understanding the match of the program, is it that the student needs better time management, or is it the student just needs better introduction to the course to get a better understanding? So one of the challenges is also not engaging major specific courses in the redesign. We're doing it for 10 years, and we're just going to continue because there's not enough time, so we don't redesign. And this is something I talk about, data. We have so much data on our hands. Right now, the data, the number of individuals in this room is data. Then you start looking at the ethnicity of the people in the room, the majors that the people in the room are connected to, right? So target the right students based upon our data, and then select programs that show to be successful and partner with those programs. Not all programs are successful for the same thing, and it's key for us to identify what a program is successful at doing. If a program is successful at making a student feel welcome, then that's the outcome. Don't expect for this program to make that student pass the ACT. That is not the design of the program. to stay on the soapbox for a while, I get my own personal views, not UNT-Dallas or any other views, but I get very annoyed when I hear we are not preparing our students for the GRE or for graduate school. And I said, no, we are not. Intro to Public Health is not to prepare a student for the GRE or for graduate school. There are countless Kaplan courses that do that prepare students on how to take the GRE correctly. My course will never do that. And it will not be beneficial for me to engage my students as though my course is the GRE prep of all preps. And so I think we have to identify what is the purpose of our course and then connect our students to areas where we believe they lack resources or ability to succeed. But don't put one course as the cure-all mechanism for our woes. And so that's just my personal belief, right? Last program, it's a summer program, it's an 8-week program in Cleveland, Ohio, called Youth Enjoying Science, or Yes to STEM. And I thought that was creative. Every year they pick 36 participating middle and high school students, have to be 14 years or older. And they work at this comprehensive cancer center where students learn to beat cancer, research to beat cancer, and teach to beat cancer, meaning teaching capacity of high school teachers. So there are 3 components of this. One focuses on the students, and two focuses on the students, and one actually focuses on high school teachers. But for this presentation, I only want to focus on the research to beat cancer, since it's more STEM-related, the outcomes of this. The program basically is 8 weeks. The first week they have a motivation and orientation where the family and the student attend. And then week 1, their actual training in public speaking and presentation, because at week 8, the student has to present. I love this because they're not teaching the student to present on week 8. They're not now criticizing the student at week 8 and says, you don't know to present? Well, of course not. I have not been taught. So they have taking the liberty of doing that in week 1 in preparation for week 8. And then they have students read about successful African Americans within STEM. Because remember, imitation is how we as a society work. Children imitate what they see. And so Black history, as great as it is, my son, the only Black history he sees in his school district, can you tell me who's the only Black person that is mentioned during Black history? Martin Luther King. I said, you put the man who got killed for trying to do something. Why would you teach my child that if you try to do something, there's a possibility you might get killed? I mean, so that's Black history, as great as it is. But there is so much more to Black history. Martin Luther King, he did a great, and I don't want to, my personal view, not UNT-Dallas, second semester public health, visiting lecturer. And so they had students read about successful people who looked like them and lived long lives. It's key. And then they had them practice the SAT because they needed an SAT to get to college. Introductory biology is not going to get you into college by itself. You need an SAT. So they focus on that. And then college application advising. You need to write a personal statement of something that is dear and close to your heart. Not, let me into this college because I think your food is great. I think you have this great. It needs to be of substance, right? Teaching students that. And on struggles at week 7, they had the faculty share their personal struggles of how they maneuvered all of the things we talked about, all the barriers, all the isolation. So show students, yes, you will encounter obstacles, but you can do it, right? And then at week eight, they indicated some students didn't know what a gene was, but after they were immersed in research and laboratory, students were slicing genes. So at once, they didn't even know the definition, and now they're actually engaging hands-on. And so this program has shown to be successful in that they're immediately in STEM. And they're showing students what role models, students have to identify a role model and mentor in the field so that students can feel that sense of belonging, that identity. So those are the overview of the STEM, the state of STEM on underrepresented and minority students. What are some of the barriers? And then also, what are two of many programs that have shown to be successful? And we have about 15 minutes to spend time asking questions. I may have said things that were not what you supported. And if I do, discuss that. This is not meant for everyone to agree, and I think that's what makes innovation and movement possible, when everyone stops and say, well, how can we do this differently, right? Not necessarily better, but differently, because differently brings the mindset that we're working collectively. You are wrong. And just wanted to spend some time, if anyone had any questions, any discussion. Yes.
So if we're to take a more like humanistic, individualistic approach instead of just putting people in groups and saying it should work, do you think that would support smaller class sizes and doing away with like really large lecture halls? Because in those situations, what are you going to do if class you have 100 students?
That's very good. And I anticipated that question. I anticipated that question, Melissa. And I'm glad that you asked. I don't know if the folks, Rebecca, your folks at El Centro